Welcome to Building Oblivion PSP Episode 3. This episode focuses on August of 2006. We already snuck in August 1st, 2006's build into the previous video, so go back and watch that one. So instead, I want to skip to the end of the month, as it's where many interesting things are going on. The end of August is when the team at Climax was getting ready for the big reveal of the game. Rumors had been swirling for months that a PSP version of Oblivion had been in the works, but Bethesda had been quick to shut those rumors down. Since the title was officially announced at the end of September 2006, with the exclusive feature intended for the official PlayStation magazine, it should be no surprise that builds were worked on throughout the month of August for the big reveal. With magazines needing some more time to get the information published than the internet does, the team worked tirelessly to prepare. Between August 25th and August 29th of 2006, at least 4 builds were presented as potential candidates for the reveal. The video you are seeing now is from that final build on August 29th. The team had focused a lot on squashing some bugs and making sure the frame rate was good enough to leave positive first impressions, which meant cutting out debug features as well. I say that with the assumption that the video or playable builds were shown to OPM, rather than just having been sent screenshots. I think it's a pretty good bet that this is the case, based on the magazine itself. It should come to no surprise to those of you who did watch the earlier episodes that the starting area had changed yet again. We now have a skylight in the ceiling of the jail cell, although light no longer shines through the wall. No circle menu has been implemented for quick switching of weapons. Comparing it to the OPM article, we can see that this really was at least very close to the build that was seen in the magazine. More interesting though is if we check out a developer build from days later on August 31st, 2006. The UMD versions of the game can be fairly locked down and hard to get to certain files because they're on a disk. It's very hard to edit those things. These development versions, however, are not nearly so bad. That isn't to say that some of this data doesn't also exist in the other build, but here it's just a lot easier to get to. Ralta Zone 2 and 4 seem to have changed the most, at least based on the file sizes, although it's very hard to see because it freezes all the time. But to be honest, these portions of the game are constantly in flux, as the team seemed very determined to get that beginning section of the game just right, so that really isn't all that unusual. It is worth noting though that the weapon loadout is slightly different in this build over the previous one that I just showed. Despite playable builds existing in the game for just a few months, it does appear though that Climax had already realized that they had bit off a bit more than they could chew. The Moonguard Oblivion Zone is still in the game, but at first glance it doesn't appear to have been worked on. But in reality, things had begun to change behind the scenes. The old Moonguard Oblivion Zones had been copied and renamed to Ralta Oblivion Zones. The changes made are relatively small, not changing the file sizes by any huge amount, but things have begun to change slightly. For example, a treasure chest is at the beginning of the first Oblivion Zone in the Ralta version, which was missing from the Moonguard version, along with some early monsters. The later OT labeled zones, though, appear to be the same size, so I doubt anything has really changed. These changes indicate that maybe things weren't going quite so well, and that some areas were already being scrapped from the game. Along with those files, there are some test areas baked into the game. There are many instances in this build where the scripts aren't linked properly, or simply don't exist, leading the game to freeze when talking to an NPC. Dig just a little bit deeper, and this build gets extremely interesting. The hub is one of the key characteristics of Oblivion PSP, considering the game just couldn't have an open world like the console counterparts. The PSP just simply didn't have enough power to handle that overworld. This August build, though, gives us access to 3 of the hub zones in an extremely early version. They are full of bugs, and doing anything little can crash the game, and the world itself is still white-boxed. NPCs all share the same model, with very primitive dialogue, and the statues are one of the highlights for me because they simply use the NPC models that we've seen in a T-pose, but it exists. This is the first instance of the hub existing, and I think it's extremely exciting. The Mages Guild is also extremely primitive. I don't recall anything even calling it the Mages Guild in this build, although one NPC does call it a guild hall. The big change is to the top of the zone, which you can reach after climbing some rather difficult to navigate stairs. I believe that this area was later chopped off and made into its own zone in the later builds, as an area you can return to after completing an Oblivion zone mission. Of course, there's other small changes along the way too. Walking around this last area of the hub, and we can find some more early content that you've come to expect, white boxed and all. While we've made it through August 2006, this does wrap up episode 3 of Building Oblivion PSP. What is to come next time? Well, to be honest, I don't know because I haven't looked ahead yet. There certainly are some September builds, some of which may have been used to take additional screenshots for the fine folks at OPM. I guess we'll just have to wait and find out together. Hit that subscribe button and do check us out on Patreon at patreon.com/P2P online. And until next time, thanks for watching.